Well, good evening. Tonight, some more updates on the possibility of a military confrontation with Iran. This is an article that appeared in the German news magazine Der Spiegel on the 16th of this month, and here are some excerpts from it. The Israeli government no longer believes that sanctions can prevent Iran from building nuclear weapons. A broad consensus in favor of a military strike against Tehran's nuclear facilities without the Americans, if necessary, is beginning to take shape. Yatom, a member of the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, was invited to attend a NATO conference in Brussels last year, and while reviewing the agenda, Yatom, a retired major general, was surprised to see that the meeting was titled "The Iranian Challenge" and not "The Iranian Threat." When a speaker with a French accent mentioned that a U.S. military strike against Iranians' nuclear facilities would be the most dangerous scenario of all, Yatom politely but firmly said, "Sir, you are wrong. The worst scenario would be if Iran acquired an atom bomb." Yatom, 63 years old, has spent most of his life in the military. He has been a military advisor to former Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin in the mid-1990s, and was named head of the Israeli Mossad intelligence agency. Nevertheless, Yatom, a member of the Labour Party, is not some reckless hawk, the Spiegel says. Unlike most Knesset members, he flatly rejects, for example, a major Israeli offensive against the Islamist Hamas in the Gaza Strip. But Yatom's willingness to strike a compromise ends when he is asked what he considers to be the best response to the Iranian nuclear program. "We no longer believe in the effectiveness of sanctions," he says. "A military operation is needed if the world wants to stop Iran." And one question over which Israelis' various political groups disagree is the timing of the attack. The Doves argue that diplomatic efforts by the United Nations should be allowed to continue until Iran is on the verge of completing the bomb. Now, what would be proof of whether Iran has completed the bomb would be another question altogether, of course. That way, Israel could at least argue convincingly that all non-military options had been exhausted. The hawks, on the other hand, believe time is running out. They stress that there is now a favorable window of opportunity that will close with the U.S. presidential election in November, and that Israel can only depend on American support for as long as the current U.S. President, George W. Bush, is still in charge in Washington. They are convinced that the country cannot truly depend on any of the candidates to succeed Bush in office. Barack Obama, the presumptive Democratic candidate, has already said that he favors direct negotiations with Tehran. The other day, in front of AIPAC, he just renounced whatever he was saying before, by the way. And even if Republican John McCain wins the race, politicians in Jerusalem do not expect him to be ordering an attack on Iran as his first official act in office. President Bush, however, has recently been sending out signals that are suspiciously reminiscent of the run-up to the war in Iraq. Then, as today, he insisted that all options are on the table. And then, as today, he sought to appease the Europeans by saying that all diplomatic channels would be exhausted first. But during his recent speech to Slovenia, Bush said there is a lot of urgency when it comes to dealing with Iran, and the Israeli political folks, well, if you go to Israel and listen carefully, you'll hear that urgency in their voice. Jerusalem's military leaders claim that Tehran could curtail every Israeli military campaign. In the Gaza Strip, for example, which Tom was just done saying they weren't willing to attack, right? With only the credible threat of a nuclear strike. In other words, what they're saying is that the Israeli military believes that as long as people believe that Iran has the bomb, then that is a credible threat. Despite its military strength, they say the country would be practically defenseless, speaking of Israel. Even worse, the mere existence of an Iranian nuclear bomb, the government in Jerusalem believes, would trigger an exodus of the educated elite that could spell disaster for the country, both economically and culturally. Iran would be in a position to destroy the Zionist dream without even pressing a button, says Ephraim Snee, a retired general and cabinet minister for many years. I think this is going to be a two-part essay tonight. Thanks for listening. On to part 2.